Okay, this is my first video blog about my water-cooled build that I put together recently. I actually have had this build done roughly about a year now. Pretty happy with it. Really haven't had a chance to kind of make a video file talking about it until now. But again, pretty happy with the results. For my first, again, very happy with it. Some people watching this video might see different ways of doing it, better ideas, or maybe even mistakes I've made. But like I said, for my first, I'm very happy with the results. Ended up using kind of a few main component manufacturers for the water parts, water-cooled parts. I used a lot of EK products. Great quality, worked well, a lot of flexibility. I used a lot of Asus ROG products as well as Corsair, EVGA, and Samsung. I'll try to go through what the loop looks like, what went into the build, and kind of show around what it looks like. So kind of starting here right at the center with the processor and cooling. So I have an EK block there for my Intel i7 processor, and it's kind of like a frosted glass in front, so the LEDs that are plugged in at the top kind of shine through it. I like the effect. Very similarly, I have an EK D5 pump top with the same finish, that frost finish, with two LEDs in the back that make the entire block glow. I have an EK reservoir. I have a row of LEDs behind it just to make sure that the red liquid shines through really well. EK symbol inside. That piece of plastic also prevents water turbulence to make sure it doesn't create like a funnel tornado effect. My EVGA graphics cards, they're 780 hydro copper. Pretty happy with them. I know a lot of water cooling builds out there use aftermarket parts from EK, kind of done by hand. I wasn't quite comfortable with that just yet for my first water cooled build, so I purchased EVGA's hydro copper, and it has great quality. Those red LEDs on the logo can be switched to pulse or become more bright as the temperature goes up, so you can kind of customize it. I also have a custom, well, I guess you'd call it an aftermarket EVGA SLI bridge. I'm not a big fan of just the regular black fins, or whatever you want to call them. The regular SLI bridges kind of look plain. That one looks a lot more premium. Using Dominator memory right there. Paid a little bit more for the faster speed. Probably don't notice much of a difference. But I definitely love the looks of the Dominator Platinum memory. That metal cover just looks great. It also has a little bit of a LED, white LED kind of glow in the background. Can barely tell, but it's just right. You can tell my cable management is a big part. Using cable ties, as well as a few fins. E22 brand actually makes these combs that go in between the cables to hold them in place. Otherwise, I doubt they would look this good for this long. I have a Samsung SSD right there behind the plexiglass, and I'll explain that process a little bit more in a minute. The ROG screen, I forget exactly what they call it, but that is actually connected directly to the motherboard to tell you the processor temperature, and you can control fan speeds. Got an intake fan right there. And a little bit more I'll explain here in a second in regards to how the loop functions. Okay, I'm going to explain a little bit more about the water cooling loop and how it works. So here in the reservoir, you've got, of course, the liquid. It's an EK kind of blood red liquid. the outlets here on the bottom, the fill port at the top, so I can turn this 90-degree fill port forward and take off the cap so I can fill up the reservoir or tap it off when needed. Coming out here out of the right, bottom right, you actually have the fittings and an actual bend that I did, heated bend on the actual acrylic into the pump top, or just the pump itself. It'll come out here, go down into the acrylic. There's a T there. You can't really see the bottom of the T because it comes down below that white acrylic piece, but I'll explain that later. Then it comes down here. I made a couple loops here just so it would look nice underneath the bottom shelf. Comes all the way to the back of the build. You can't actually see it, but it's coming back here behind. And now you can see the pipe again. Up and into the radiator. Now you can tell the radiator there at the top. It's a push-pull configuration. It has fans at the bottom and at the top. After it's finished cooling all the liquid, you're going to have the liquid come out, down, into the motherboard. Again, this is in Asus ROG 6 formula, so it actually has built-in water cooling loops already, so I didn't have to put in any aftermarket loops. Once it goes into the motherboard, it comes out the top. And I think originally it was set up to probably go through the top first and come out the bottom, but I don't think it really makes a difference. Once it comes out the motherboard, it does go into the processor. Comes out of the processor, down into the first EVGA graphics card, through the second, out the bottom. I have an RPM counter here that just kind of tells you how fast the liquid's moving. You can set up profiles on the computer to alert you when if the pump dies and it stops turning the dial. I don't use that as of now. And in a final bend back into the reservoir. Okay, just want to talk about the build a little bit more in general and kind of what I did. Of course, this is a Corsair Obsidian 900D case, and you'll notice that a lot of the insides have been stripped out. Yes, I had to break off a lot of rivets, take off the CD and hard drive trays that were in there, clean it up a little bit. But if you're curious on how I achieved kind of this look, I'll explain here in detail. So basically, everything that you see that kind of has that carbon fiber pattern on top of it is actually a 3M product, like an adhesive, and it does have some texture, so it looks really good. Really easy to apply. With a heat gun, it actually will mold into just about anything. But behind that is pretty much just pieces of acrylic. And I just kind of went to my local Home Depot, Lowe's, picked up sheets of acrylic at a certain thickness that I knew would be good to work with. And they're just flat pieces, but with a heat gun, you can kind of bend them into any shape that you want. So taking a look here at the build, you'll notice on the back end, it's pretty much just a flat piece. But you'll notice kind of here in the middle, there is curvature, and it kind of pops out like a 3D shape and goes back in here on this corner. Additionally, on this front piece, you'll notice it's kind of a flat and then it indents in. Lastly, you'll notice a little bit of a dimple here. Try to get my camera into focus. A dimple here where the fan is. And you'll be surprised, I actually cut this hole in the acrylic and heated the edges with the heat gun and pushed a kitchen bowl, a glass kitchen bowl through it that wasn't quite the right size, so it actually forced the edges out, and I achieved that bubble or dimple effect that I was looking for, kind of like an airflow dimple, which is perfect. It makes the fan look like it's directing the fan air backwards. I also removed those ugly stickers behind the fan and applied another piece of carbon fiber black 3M product. Now that Samsung SSD is actually behind the plexiglass, and I bought another white see-through, well, not quite see-through, kind of like just a white piece of acrylic from a company that actually is, they sent me swatches so I could see exactly which color of white would look good when it has light shining through it. So that Samsung SSD is actually raised in front of the piece behind it, but that's a separate piece behind this forward piece of acrylic. Down below, that's actually a thicker piece of acrylic. You can kind of tell the thickness right here. Now the entire piece is acrylic, but I cut out right around the edges, kind of like with an X-Acto knife, where I wanted the window to shine through. So here you can kind of tell there's a window on top, and that pipe is actually running below the window. You can tell that this Asus ROG Republic of Gamers sticker is kind of floating on top. So looking from the top down, it kind of gives a windowed effect, and you can see that pipe protruding, or not protruding, but laid down below the acrylic glass window, and it makes it look really cool, kind of like a vein, I guess. I did choose a few different types of bends. You can tell a lot of my bends are just using the EK connectors, fittings, I guess you would call it. And other places I chose to do them by hand by heating up the pipes. You can tell here, the ones down below. I did this one here in the back. And I liked having a little bit of both. It turned out really, really cool. Something interesting with the graphics card, these EVGA cards actually come with a back plate. They have little holes and they're kind of see-through. I wasn't too impressed with them, so I built my own. You'll tell here these are actually not attached. I should be able to lift them here just a second. And you can't, a little dark, so you can't really see below what it used to look like. But it's just a black cover. And I built my own backings. Now this is a red carbon fiber 3M product that I put on top of another piece of really thin acrylic, you can tell. Now for those of you out there that might say, oh, it's going to get too hot, or it might melt the acrylic, or that's a hazard, I've actually put my hand below it and it never gets hot enough where it would melt it. I watch all my temperatures in the computer. Really haven't seen anything crazy happen that would cause me to be afraid. I put some stickers on top from EK. These actually came with the EVGA cards. And it just makes it look nice, makes it look like it's an aftermarket product that you'd buy from a company, that red piece. But honestly, it's just a piece of acrylic covered in 3M adhesive sticker. And my goal is to achieve as much of a premium look, not make it look extremely homemade, and I think it worked out really well. I'm happy with the results. And you'll notice actually behind or underneath the graphics cards, behind this pipe right here, there's another piece of acrylic that I bent that actually goes in front of the bottom of the graphics, the motherboard, where at sometimes you usually get those cables coming out for the power on, power off, the LEDs, and it just looks messy. I didn't like that, so I just extended the acrylic front to back. And underneath, you can tell here where I created a cut so that the cables from the graphics card would go behind. And again, it achieved the result I was looking for. One more time here. The ROG kind of control panel tells you the temperature that the CPU is running. You can set up fan profiles. And it just kind of looks cool to have a display inside of the computer itself. Again, I have an EK Radiator with push-pull fans. They're Corsair fans. Really like the rings. You can change colors, blue, gray, white. A lot of people will paint theirs any color you want, and it looks great. Down below, I chose to kind of cover that bottom panel with another piece of 3M carbon fiber adhesive. I picked up that Republic of Gamers sticker online. Forget the name of the store, but I'll try to link it up later. A lot of people take this entire panel out and just kind of show the fans behind it protrude, and that look is nice, but since I have an LED down below, it becomes too bright. I'll kind of show you what it looks like. So a few more fans. A lot of people put an additional radiator down there. I haven't created a second loop yet, maybe someday. But you can tell I have a row of LEDs down there, and it's really bright, even more so than on camera. So I decided to keep this panel in front of it so that that doesn't shine through and become kind of obnoxious. All right, this is the front of the computer. I decided also to cover it half and half with black carbon fiber and red carbon fiber with some stickers that kind of make it look a little bit more premium. I have LEDs in there that make these side columns kind of look red. They're a little bit more dim in the video than they actually are in person. You can tell a little bit more there, the pattern. If I take this cover off, it's kind of normally where the filters are. You can see where the LED is placed. This front grille, it has the ability to have kind of 3 fans. I only have 2. To me, that's what looked the best. And again, more can be done to the front. Maybe it's too plain for some of you. But work in progress. I like the way it looks for now. Not much to look at the back of the build, but I will show you down below what things look like. So this is kind of down below. You'll notice that T comes out the bottom there. And this is where I have my exit port. My when I need to empty the system, I just switch the T here, and that'll empty my system, my loop, without actually having to have a mess. It just comes out. I plug in another extension there at the end with an actual tube down to a basin, and makes it real easy. Now my cable management down below isn't as pretty, I know that. I'm not too worried about it. There's again the strip of LEDs at the bottom that shine through that bottom white piece of acrylic. I have my, many of you might be asking, oh, you have an SSD above, but you don't have a place for your hard drive. I do. So I just have a Caviar Black 1 tera Western Digital mounted to the front. Now that's not an original mounting spot on this case, so I kind of did it myself. And that fan from the front actually pushes air onto it and then comes out the top and below, so it actually keeps the hard drive cool. I know that's not really necessary, but works for me. And there's my 1200i Corsair power supply. Okay, and the top of the case, for this case, it kind of has like a dust filter that's just laying on the top. Once you pop it open, you can tell I've got the additional fans there at the top that pull the air through the radiator. So again, fans at the bottom that push, radiator in the middle, fans at the top that pull.